Preston County 911. Where's your emergency?
Excuse me, sir, I'm dying. Someone shot me, I'm dying, sir. Please come get me.
Hello?
Come get me, sir. Sir, come get me, I'm dying. Someone shot me. Someone shot me, sir. I'm dying.
Where are you?
I'm dying. I don't know, sir. Please come get me.
Where are you, sir?
I'm dying, sir.
Did that call break your heart? That crime took place where I live. Today, I have multiple cases for you. I'm going to start with the case of Blaze Spurl. I'll come back to the one you just heard. Now, on September 15, 2008, in Summerville, South Carolina, 22-month-old boy named Blaze was found unalived in his crib. He was cold, stiff, and covered in blood. The little boy, who should have been playing with his toys and learning to talk, instead became the victim of a horrific crime. This would expose a devastating pattern of neglect and abuse in this story. Blaze lived with his mother Jennifer, along with his 8-year-old sister, and Jennifer's on and off boyfriend, Justin Hillaby. The family also had a couple renting a room in their home, and by all accounts, the household was unstable, marked by drinking and dysfunction. Justin Hillaby was known to be violent, especially when he drank. In fact, one woman who had a child with Hillaby would later describe him as dangerous when intoxicated. This is what you call a see you next Tuesday. And despite these red flags, Jennifer allowed Justin to be around her children, sometimes leaving them in his care. This decision would prove to be fatal. So September 14, 2008 started like what Jennifer would later call a normal day. Jennifer, Justin, Blaze, and his older sister went to the Weatherstone community pool. But this was far from a normal family outing. Jennifer and Justin spent the day drinking with friends at the pool. They were arguing with each other. Imagine that scene. They're out in public, by the pool, pissed, drunk, and they're fighting. They were listening to music while little Blaze was left unsupervised. What happened at the pool was a preview of the neglect that would end in tragedy. There were some teenagers nearby who were also at the pool, and they witnessed something disturbing. They saw Blaze, a toddler who was barely 2, jumping into the deep end of the pool multiple times, and each time it wasn't his mother or Justin who rescued him. It was these teenage strangers who pulled a drowning child from the water. On one of these occasions, after a teenager saved Blaze from drowning, Justin made a chilling comment. He went to the teenagers and he said, "You should have just kept him there. Pardon the pun, but let that sink in. He's obviously drunk and doesn't realize what he's saying. Donkey or us?" A man entrusted with caring for a child suggested that the child should have been left to drown. The witnesses also observed Justin's cruel treatment of Blaze throughout the day. They saw him yell at the toddler, yank his arm violently, and force him to stand in a corner while saying, "Nobody cares about you." These were words directed at a baby, a child who depended entirely on the adults around him for love and protection. Such a cowardly move to do. Why do you think he would speak to the child in that way? It's clear he never wanted that child. And after returning home from the pool sometime after 7, Jennifer left Blaze in his high chair eating. She said he looked fine and was acting normally. Then she made a decision that would haunt her forever. She then went out drinking with her friends, leaving both of her children alone with Justin. Now, that couple who rented the room in the house, they came home around 7 p.m. and they went to their room to watch TV. One of them later recalled that Blaze's older sister was in her room and that Blaze seemed okay, though he was tired from his day at the pool. These idiots had been drinking all day and then she goes out drinking with her friends. This couple in the house spent the rest of the evening in their room, unaware of the horror unfolding elsewhere. What happened during those hours when Jennifer was gone is partially unknown, and only Justin knows what truly happened. But the evidence tells a clear story of violence. Justin gave multiple statements to police. Each one changed as investigators pressed him. At first, he denied striking Blaze. Then, in his second statement, he claimed that he accidentally touched Blaze's head on a doorframe and on the crib while putting him to bed. He also said that earlier in the evening, Blaze's head had collided with Justin's knee as the boy ran toward him, causing the toddler to fall to the floor. But the investigators did not believe these accounts. They pressed harder. Finally, in his third statement, Justin admitting to a different version of events. He said that he touched Blaze with an open hand a couple of times after the toddler spilled his drink. Justin said this knocked Blaze off his feet and caused him to touch his head on the floor. According to Justin, Blaze looked like he was falling asleep after this incident, so Justin decided, I'll put him to bed. Later, during a recorded phone call from jail, he told Jennifer, "Baby, I smacked him. I didn't do it that hard, but when he touched the floor, that's when I guess it all started. And I didn't notice because I was drunk. So then I just put him in his crib." This admission, this confession, would become the centerpiece of the prosecution's case against him. This phone recording is what the jury used during deliberations. Now, in terms of Jennifer's version of events, she came home at 1 a.m. She was intoxicated. This is where she found Justin asleep on the couch. Instead of checking on her children, she looked at the baby monitor to check on Blaze, but she did not go into the room. She then went into the roommate's bedroom and argued with them about rent before getting into bed with Justin. She then went to sleep. Imagine that day. You're arguing all day at the pool, drunk. You come home, leave your kids at home. You then go out, get drunk again. You come home, you argue with your roommates, and then you go to bed. The fuck? Now, the next morning, around 6:15 a.m., Jennifer woke up to get Blaze's sister ready for school. After the girl left, Jennifer went back to sleep. She and Justin did not get out of bed until 10 a.m., more than 14 hours after Jennifer had left children in Justin's care. What Jennifer didn't realize, though, is by 10 a.m., Blaze wasn't awake, which was unusual. She went to check on him, but as she opened the door, Justin told her, "Let him keep sleeping. It's okay. Leave the door open a little bit, so if he wakes up, we'll hear him, but he'll be fine. Let him sleep." And even then, Justin was trying to delay the discovery of what he did. But as Jennifer started to leave the room, something caught her eye. As she turned around, she noticed something on Blaze's face. She walked over to his crib, and what she found there would shatter her world. Blaze was cold to the touch. This little boy was stiff like a board. He was covered in blood. Jennifer became hysterical. Justin called 911, but it was too late. Emergency personnel arrived and confirmed what Jennifer already knew in her heart. Blaze was dead. The autopsy revealed the full extent of horror Blaze endured. Dr. Nicholas Batalis, the forensic pathologist who performed the autopsy, determined Blaze died of blunt head trauma and classified the manner of death as homicide. The doctor believed Blaze had died within 2 to 12 hours before he was found. Blaze had 23 injuries to the head, 12 marks on his face, 2 other scrapes on his face, and 9 injuries to his skull that resulted in hemorrhaging around his brain. The doctor testified Blaze could have been touched with a book or a fist, or he could have been pushed against something, causing his head to strike a doorway or a desk. These injuries were so severe and so numerous, the doctor said they could not have been sustained by a toddler simply falling or an accidental bump. These were intentional injuries, multiple impacts to different sites on a baby's skull, and the injuries would have been immediately symptomatic. Blaze would have appeared sleepy and groggy, exactly as Justin had described. Remember, when Justin initially attacked Blaze, Blaze wanted to sleep. He was in a daze. This is the sleepy and groggy state Blaze would have been in, as the doctor described. So, Justin Hillaby was arrested and charged with homicide by child mistreatment. At trial, he changed his story yet again. He denied ever doing this to Blaze and claimed he only told Jennifer and police that he had struck the child in order to be consistent with statements he had already given. He testified that his confessions to police were prompted by officers telling him repeatedly that people did not get in trouble for accidental death. One of the officers who questioned Justin admitted during a hearing that police had indeed told him this might have been an accident and that he couldn't get in trouble for an accident. But the trial court found Justin's statements were given voluntarily, knowingly, and intelligently. Essentially, what Justin is arguing here is, I'm such a dumb fuck that the police came, told me, it's okay, son, it could have been an accident. Get him to be comfortable, make him feel like, they're concerned for him, when they knew that his ass was just going to speak eventually. And then he got mad, feeling like he got played. But sorry, Justin, the evidence was overwhelming. The jury heard his confession on the recorded jail call to Jennifer. See, Justin, if you were so mad about how you were manipulated into a confession, you should not have flapped your gums to Jennifer then, eh? Muppet. The jury heard the medical evidence of 23 head injuries on the toddler. They heard from the teenagers at the pool who witnessed Justin's cruelty and his shocking comment that they should have let Blaze drown. So, they heard the recorded confession one more time and they returned a guilty verdict. Jennifer was also arrested and charged with unlawful conduct toward a child. The affidavit in her case stated that she did place the victim at unreasonable risk of harm when she decided to go out on the piss. She faced up to 10 years in prison. While she didn't inflict all the injuries, she had left her children with a violent man who had shown clear signs of mistreating Blaze, and she had failed to supervise her son at the pool where he nearly drowned multiple times. Now, years later, Justin, who was sentenced to life, his case took another turn during his appeal. His attorneys brought in Dr. Michael Baden, one of the most renowned pathologists in the world. In fact, Baden was the chief medical examiner of New York, and he'd been called upon to investigate the death of JFK and Dr. Martin Luther King. So this wasn't any skid mark they pulled off the street. Dr. Baden revealed all the evidence and offered a stunning alternative theory. He testified that Blaze had died from more than 50 blunt force impacts, even more than originally thought, caused by a narrow object. He believed the injuries resembled what he called sibling rivalry type deaths, suggesting perhaps the 8-year-old sister did this. Now, when I was doing the research for this case, I read this, I was like, are you fucking dumb, bruv? How are you, Dr. Baden, JFK autopsy, Martin Luther King autopsy, right? Chief medical examiner in New York, must have gone to Johns Hopkins for like 20 years. How the fuck did we send you to uni to learn all this medical shit so you can help the country and you be this fucking thick? He claimed that the sister had used a toy or stick-like object to injure Blaze. Dr. Baden disagreed with the original autopsy by Dr. Batelis, including the circular marks on Blaze's body at the time of death. He also pointed out that Batelis had only been certified in forensic pathology 12 days before performing Blaze's autopsy, and it seems that's 12 days better than you. But the post-conviction relief, the appeal, was rejected. This Dr. Baden, this fraud, his testimony was not credible because he actually never performed the autopsy himself. He just looked at photographs and reports years after the fact. The court also noted Justin's own confession remained unrebutted. He had admitted to striking Blaze, and no evidence suggested anyone else had injured the child. This story should never have happened. It's a story of a vulnerable child who was let down by the adults who should have protected him. Jennifer, what were you thinking? From the moment he was allowed to jump into the pool's deep end without supervision, to the violent end he suffered at the hands of Justin, to then the delay of checking it and then the delay of checking on him in the morning, every step was a failure. He was only 22 months old. I barely have $22 in my account. Instead, he died alone in his crib after suffering violence. This case reminds us that children are vulnerable. They are precious. They are our absolute responsibility. You know, my son's soccer team, I'm like the assistant coach, right? So there's a whole bunch of kids that I don't know, but I coach the second team. So on the weekends, we go and play, right? But when we play, I can't help but be their father in that moment. Because a lot of the times, I mean, these kids are only 5, but like if they miss a shot or if they miss a goal, some of them will start crying, right? So that's why I go over to them and I tell them, no, it's okay. Keep going. Eventually you will score. Keep your head up. You know, encouraging them. Because that's just what adults do. What am I going to do? Tell him, shut the fuck up, stop crying? What? No. Where was Justin's love for children? You know, where was his urge to take care of this child? Both of these muppets prioritized drinking and their own relationships over the safety of the children. I mean, he literally told her, I smacked him when he hit the floor. These were the words he said to Jennifer, and they stand as a permanent reminder of the violence the boy endured. But let's move on to the next story. Now, January 8th, 2022, an incident unfolded in Fairfax, Virginia, and this kind of changed their lives forever. This is the story of Kebron Isaiah Lee Gay. He was only 18 years old. He was from Alexandria, Virginia. Alexandria is about 20-25 minutes from Fairfax. His life was cut short in a senseless act of violence. Kebron was a bright young man. He was born in DC in 2003. He was raised in Alexandria by his parents, Karen and Keba. At the time of his death, Kebron was looking forward to building a future. He had recently filled out a job application showing his desire to work and improve his life. He was known as someone trying to lead a positive path. Now the evening, January 8, 2022, it began like any other for Kebron. Around 6:30, he found himself at a bus stop in the Hybla Valley in Fairfax County, specifically at Richmond Highway and Dart Drive. But what started as a normal day became a nightmare. At the bus stop, he was with Jordan Eugene Cochran. I'm just going to refer to him as Cock. He was 20 years old. Kebron and his family knew who Cock was. Cock had been staying with Kebron's family, but then tensions rose in the house and Kebron's father told Cock to leave because he found Cock had a gun. And although Cock did not threaten Kebron's father, the mere presence of a weapon in the home was enough for his father to say, "Get out." So, following this, Kebron kindly tried to help Cock move. The two had been in Cock's car earlier that day. However, things quickly escalated into a violent altercation at the bus stop. So, the two are at the bus stop and Cock is saying, "Why is your dad trying to kick me out? It's just a gun. I wasn't going to do anything." Kebron is telling him, "Well, that's my father's house. He can do what he wants," which is a fair point. But they start getting into an argument. And then Kebron physically struck Cock. This is when Cock pulled out a gun and then Kebron starts shouting for help. Then, as the altercation seemed to calm, Cock started walking away from Kebron. As he got further away, he pulled the gun out and he did this. Kebron was in disbelief and he kept saying, "What are you going to do? Are you going to shoot me?" Tragically, Cock fired his weapon, striking Kebron. The young man fell mortally wounded at the bus stop. Emergency responders arrived swiftly. Kebron was found with a serious gunshot wound to the upper body and was rushed to the hospital. Despite medical efforts, he succumbed to his injuries. His death marked the first homicide of that year. But the violence did not end there. After shooting, Cock fled the bus stop and made his way to a nearby 7-Eleven parking lot. There, desperate and dangerous, he saw a ride from a random driver. When the driver refused to give him a ride, Cock fired at the vehicle, striking the man in the face and permanently blinding him. This innocent stranger, completely unrelated to the dispute, became another victim of Cock's violence. Now, law enforcement quickly located Cock at a nearby Taco Bell. This is the body cam footage.
"I think I got him at the Taco Bell. Let me see your hands. Get on the ground. Do it now. Get on the fucking ground. Hands out to your side. Do it now or I'll shoot you. Keep it right there. I got him. I got the gun right there. You move towards that gun, I'm going to blow your fucking head off. Do you understand?"
Yes, sir. I'm fully compliant.
Give me the... Move in as a arrest team. You move, I will shoot you. Do you understand? Keep your hands out to your side. Go ahead. Go ahead. You move, I'm going to shoot you right in the face.
Yes, sir. I'm fully compliant.
Police found the handgun used in the shootings and items belonging to Kebron. Now, during the legal proceedings, prosecutors revealed that Cock had a prior conviction for bringing a firearm to a high school basketball game 2 years earlier, highlighting a troubling pattern of gun violence. The presiding judge sentenced him to 2 life sentences plus 11 years in prison for first-degree murder. The judge emphasized the need to protect the community from someone out of control with a gun. In court, he did express remorse, stating he felt like he had lost a friend, an acknowledgement of the friendship that once existed between him and Kebron. Kebron's life was a bright light extinguished far too soon. His family, friends, and community mourn the loss of an ambitious young man whose hopes for the future were shattered. Now, I've known many young kids in this area just like him, and most of them stay out of trouble. In this area, by like 9-10 o'clock, everyone's at home. You never see kids on the street corners. So I think this was just an isolated incident and Cock got what he deserved. Most kids are either at hookah bars, sometimes they're at the clubs, or they're in the malls. But Cochran, what the hell were you thinking? This moves me on to another case that took place nearby me. So, August 10, 2022, Falls Church in Virginia. Sylvia Abakay. She was 40 years old. She was a mother of 2. She lost her life in a brutal stabbing and arson case, and it revealed a chilling story. This is going to make you think, what the hell? Check the details out. It was a case of mistaken identity. Sylvia was staying temporarily in an apartment belonging to her close friend, Fatima Rojas. It was located on Wilson Place in the Seven Corners neighborhood. She and her husband had taken refuge there amidst challenging times, but none could have foreseen the horror that would unfold within the walls. Now, Richard Montano, he's a suspect. He was 48 years old. He went into their apartment with lethal intent. See, he had been in an on and off relationship with Fatima for nearly 8 years, and the relationship had just ended in July 2022. Evidence at trial revealed Richard had been unlawfully entering the apartment multiple times without Fatima's knowledge in the weeks leading up to the attack. In fact, the Ring camera footage that you're seeing right now shows you different times of him entering and leaving. On one afternoon, neighbors reported screams. This was the 911 call.
Fairfax County 911, where's emergency?
Yeah, hi. I'm actually hearing my neighbor scream. I think there's something going on. Can you please come over? And it's at the villages of Foster's. Yes. Something's going on. Please come fast.
Okay, hold on, okay?
In fact, the neighbor called 911 4 separate times in a desperate attempt to alert authorities something's going on in that house. Now, Richard goes in and is looking for Fatima. However, it's Sylvia who happened to be in there. He mistaken her for Fatima, so he attacked Sylvia with a knife, inflicting several wounds. The medical examiner later determined these wounds were fatal. Richard then decided to set the apartment on fire. Firefighters quickly arrived at the scene after smoke was spotted and attempted to extinguish the flames, and despite their efforts, Sylvia was pronounced dead at the scene. Over mistaken identity. The police investigation was swift. They identified Richard as a suspect based on surveillance footage and eyewitness reports. He was arrested near his Arlington home without incident. In October 2023, after a thorough trial, a jury found Richard guilty of first-degree murder and arson of an occupied dwelling. In fact, the Fairfax County Commonwealth Attorney, he described the extreme violence and disregard for human life as rarely seen in Fairfax. And I agree. You don't see this often, or the sickness in this case anyway. This case exhibited some of the most disturbing crime scenes I've ever encountered, the attorney said. While nothing can undo the loss of Sylvia, we can ensure Richard will not harm anyone else in the community. Sylvia left behind her family and loved ones who continue to grieve her senseless death. She was a mother, a friend, a woman caught tragically in the crossfire of another's rage. This stupid bastard mistaken his partner for her friend. Absolute donut. And now to the case of Nigel Malt. So, evening, January 23, 2022, in Norfolk, England. Nigel Malt, a father consumed by rage and driven by personal demons, ended the life of his 19-year-old daughter, Lauren Malt. But the way in which he did it was so savage. Lauren was just 19 years old, a young woman with her whole life ahead of her. She lived with her mother, Karen, and her younger siblings in a modest home. Lauren was known to her family and friends as someone full of potential and spirit, but behind the scenes, the family was torn apart by years of turmoil. You had alcoholism, drug use, anger, and unresolved conflicts. Nigel was 44 years old. He had been estranged from his wife and children. His relationship with Karen had broken down amid allegations of violence. The family's home had become a place of tension and fear. So, January 23rd, Nigel arrived at the family home driving a black Mercedes. For whatever reason, he was angry and he confronted his daughter and her boyfriend. Tensions then escalated. Nigel threatened Lauren's boyfriend with a crowbar. Lauren attempts to defuse the situation and anger boiled over. So then Nigel gets into the Mercedes and reverses it into Lauren. The car knocked her to the ground. He then stopped and then drove the car forward again into Lauren's body. Neighbors stepped out in horror, shouting, "You've killed her! You've killed her!" Audible recordings played in court captured the agonizing sounds of Lauren beneath the car. The injuries sustained by Lauren were brutal. Significant traumatic injuries to her chest and abdomen. She had broken ribs, a broken breastbone, and a fractured back. The medical examiner described her death as crushing, suffocating trauma consistent with being viciously run over. After inflicting these fatal injuries, Nigel did not flee. Instead, he took the body into his car. He then drove it to a shop where he knew Karen was, and he said, "Look, Karen, look what I've done." Bro, what the hell? She was at the shop. Karen was confronted with the horrific reality of her daughter's condition. Karen desperately tried to help her, but Lauren was pronounced dead at the hospital. In court, Karen gave a heartbreaking victim statement. She recounted the phone call from Nigel where he said, "I'm going to bring your daughter over to you. Look what I've done to her." She screamed for details but was met with silence. She described seeing Lauren stuffed into the footwell of the car, a visual that haunts her this day. Nida's trial was held at Norwich Crown Court. During the proceedings, the prosecution presented a stark picture of a man consumed by anger, alcohol, and violence. He was found guilty of murder. The judge condemned him for using his vehicle as a lethal weapon and sentenced him to life in prison with a minimum term of 18 years. This trial revealed years of substance abuse, domestic conflict, and violence that culminated in this tragedy. Karen and her family were left to try and pick up their piece of shattered lives. Bro, he ran into her, then he reversed. That's just so savage. Now, the final case. On December 6, 2007, at 10 p.m., the Johnstown police were dispatched to 520 Charlotte Street in Colorado on a report of a 7-year-old female not breathing. Milliken police officer Brandon Outstad arrived on the scene first, at which time he observed the fire department and medical performing CPR on the victim, Zoe Garcia. Zoe was later pronounced dead at the Northern Colorado Medical Center. Through this investigation, it was learned by police that both Heather Trujillo and Lamar Roberts were left at the residence to care for Zoe while her mother was at work. An autopsy would later reveal that this death was ruled a homicide. Heather, who was Zoe's sister, told officers she was wrestling with Zoe when Zoe passed out and lost consciousness. Heather stated she was on the top of the victim, holding her arms down with her legs while trapping her on her chest like a typewriter. When Zoe passed out, then regained consciousness. Heather stated her boyfriend, Lamar Roberts, was also present during this time, acting as the referee, but not involved in the wrestling, and that her twin sisters were asleep in another room. Heather stated that after Zoe woke up from passing out, she told her it was time to go to bed, which she did, and that Zoe was having trouble breathing. Heather stated that she checked on her after approximately 15 minutes and she was not breathing, so she yelled for Lamar. Heather stated that they took her into the living room and checked for a pulse and attempted to wake her up. Heather then stated she took the victim to the shower and turned on the water, at which time the victim responded to the water, then lost consciousness again. Heather stated they took the victim to the living room where they did CPR. Heather then called her mom, Dana Trujillo. Heather stated Lamar knew CPR and that she did not. She called 911 and then her mom arrived shortly after. Lamar himself told police he was downstairs in the room playing video games, and Heather and Zoe were upstairs wrestling when Heather yelled to him that the victim was not breathing. Lamar stated Heather was in Zoe's bedroom and she was struggling to breathe, so they then took her into the living room to find a pulse. He stated that he did not know how to perform CPR, so he felt Zoe's heart to see if she was breathing. He said that he and Heather both put Zoe in the shower, at which time she seemed to respond to water. You see how Heather said Lamar did know CPR and then he confirms he did not? Strange, eh? Lamar stated they both then took her back to the living room to attempt CPR. Heather and Lamar were then requested to go to the police department for an interview. The county sheriff's investigator Josh Noonan conducted an interview. In this interview, Lamar said he was downstairs playing video games and he heard a whole bunch of noise upstairs. He stated Heather shouted for him to come upstairs because Zoe was not breathing right. Zoe was in her bed wheezing, so they carried her to the bathroom, undressed her and placed her in the tub and ran water on her. Zoe was nodding her head side to side. Her eyes were squinting and she said something. Lamar thought she was teasing, but then her breathing slowed further, which sounded raspy when she exhaled, and wheezy when she inhaled. Lamar and Heather both carried her to the living room, checking for a pulse, and then Lamar began mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, stating Zoe made a gurgling sound when exhaling. And the question remains, okay, well, what actually happened? How did she die? Well, don't worry, those details are about to come, and they're actually insane. Lamar states, while giving CPR, Heather told him that she had put Zoe to bed and started to watch a movie. Heather stated at this time she heard a noise from Zoe's room, so then she called Lamar upstairs. Lamar said he continued blowing into Zoe's mouth until Dana, the mother, and 911 arrived. Lamar said at this time blood was coming out of Zoe's nose and mouth. During Heather's interview, she went on to say that after they all ate for dinner, she and Zoe had been wrestling, playing Mortal Kombat. Heather added that during the time that they were wrestling, she had tripped Zoe in the stomach, karate chopped her lower arms, jabbed and pinched the victim's thighs, hooked her in the shins, hooked her stomach and buttocks, and poked Zoe's chest. What the fuck are you doing? Heather stated that at one point she picked up Zoe in an attempt to shake her, but dropped her on her right arm, at which time Zoe complained that her arm was hurting. Heather said Zoe did this back to her and that they were playing in a fun manner. Now, while straddling Zoe's pelvic region, she started poking her chest until Zoe closed her eyes and it seemed as if something was wrong. Heather stopped and told Zoe to go to bed, at which time Zoe stood up and fell back down, so Heather helped her to get back up and take her to bed. Heather stated Zoe closed her eyes and passed out as if she had fallen asleep. Approximately 5 to 15 minutes later, Heather heard Zoe making a similar sound to snoring, but it was a gurgling sound and Zoe was not responsive. Well, that's what happens when you play Mortal Kombat in real life with a child, you muppet. Now, all of this I know is very bizarre, so here's exactly what happened. You see, both Lamar and Heather were upstairs slugging Zoe, but did not know how hard was the pain inflicted on her. They didn't know this because they were drinking and they had become a little bit numb. You see, Lamar told police eventually that he was doing martial arts on Zoe and that he had done a back kick on her. Then he struck her again, and this time she fell on the floor and did not get up. Both Heather and Lamar were abusing the victim in the face to wake her up. They cracked an egg in her mouth, stating that the egg went down her throat in an attempt to see if she was messing around with them. Lamar then pinched her in the stomach. Lamar told police that Zoe stopped breathing for approximately 15 minutes before calling an ambulance, because the cops were going to get mad because they were teenagers watching little kids. So to sum up how they treated Zoe, the teens knocked, karate chop and body slam while imitating the video game Mortal Kombat. The coroner said Zoe died of blunt force injuries. An autopsy showed that she had a broken wrist and more than 20 bruises. She had swelling in the brain and bleeding in her neck muscles and under her spine. Heather was sentenced to 18 years in 2008. Lamar was sentenced to 36 years. Can you think of anything more stupid? They are acting out a video game on a child. Just play the video game, you muppets. But I do think because they were drinking, right, and they were high, off the alcohol that is, they were a little bit numb, they had no idea what they were doing. And I guess they paid the price. Thank you for watching.
18-year-old Lamar Roberts and 16-year-old Heather Trujillo have been charged with felony child abuse causing death. According to a police affidavit, the teens were babysitting Trujillo's half-sister, Zoe Garcia, on December 6th while the girl's mother was at work.
She was just the most precious, bubbly, happy little girl I think I've ever known.
An autopsy showed the little girl had a broken wrist, more than 20 bruises, swelling of the brain, and bleeding in her neck muscles and under her spine. Both teens have been charged as adults.
Typically, we look at factors such as the nature of the crime, the amount of violence involved in the crime, the amount of remorse, the threat to public safety, issues like that in determining whether we're going to file on juveniles as adults.
The city's police chief says the girl's death has shocked the community, especially coming just before the holidays.
It's always a difficult time, especially when a child death is involved at this time of the year. Community, small community, they'll come together and they'll work their way through it, but it's definitely hard on the family and the people of this small town.
Roberts allegedly told investigators that Zoe asked him to stop hitting her, but he said he couldn't because he was drunk. If convicted, the teens could be sentenced to 48 years in prison. Mike Gracia, The Associated Press.
By the way, if you can, please follow me on Instagram. My previous Instagram was removed, so this is my new one. Link is in the description.